So thank you for continuing to watch. This is episode 10.3 of Ben and Jake Write a Movie. We stream this all live in one go, but we split it up into easily bite-sized chunks for your viewing pleasure. Right now, today, we are talking about one of our secondary protagonist, our demon character, who we imagine will be played by Charlize Theron. We're currently calling her Charlize, but we'll come up with a better name at some point. We have been developing her character today, going into her backstory, discovering what it means to be a demon, that the demons have this big, bold plan to bring the Antichrist to Earth, and that's been kind of part of their sinister behind-the-scenes meddling in mankind for millennia. And that at some point, our demon character said, "I'm not really down with this anymore," and left. But that is never able to really truly escape what her true self is, which is this demonic entity. What does that look like in action? We'll figure that out. Do they actually transform? Do they just have some kind of demonic quality when they get super angry?
Yeah,
that is.
I think
that out.
That's an interesting place to start. So I'm thinking that, and this is a very broad concept. It's like 30,000 feet in the air view. But I think that the thing that she naturally brings with her is the thing that all demons bring with her, which is pain and suffering. Right? It's what we were just talking about a minute ago. She believes that as a demon, she'll just always bring pain and suffering to other humans.
Right.
That's
something interesting, isn't it? Does it kind of follow her around?
And there's a cloud over what's her name in Peanuts.
Totally. But then what's interesting is that there's a similar comp to Sam, isn't there? Sam just thinks that her life is a fuck up, that she's just unlucky. Bad shit happens. Totally.
Yeah.
Bad shit happens wherever she goes, and it's like, oh, that's just my lot in life.
Control over their lives. Now, are there people that are alive today that she might believe she's responsible for their pain and suffering? I don't know why I'm having this vision, right, of the 85-year-old grandfather or something, where I don't know why I'm getting an echo also. Sorry about that. Something's going on with
Sometimes it happens. It's weird. I experienced it yesterday where I would speak and I would hear myself back through your screen. I don't know why. It's not happening right now, but
So, damn StreamYard software. Hopefully it's not too annoying to all of you listening right now. But
I can't hear it on my end, just so you know.
Great. So what I'm thinking is is there the 85-year-old person whom she feels that their pain and suffering was her fault, and thus has either kept in touch with or paid for their nursing home and in private or in secret, or has done something? Is there an interesting kind of supporting character that we can personify this belief and then ultimately go back to them or have a moment with them at some point where they're like, this had nothing to do with you. You didn't cause this. Is there a way to directly make her go, I've always thought that this dark cloud came with me, and you're actually saying that it wasn't me, that you actually had your own problems and I didn't cause them, and that you created your own pain and suffering, and it wasn't my fault? I've always thought it was my fault because that's what demons did. We created pain and suffering.
There's a version of it, yeah. I think it still needs mining a little bit. I go, what's the practical purpose of it? There is a character moment, and then also allows us to then move onwards with the journey. Again, I think a little bit about the scene in Midnight Run where they go to Chicago and they go and visit Jack's old wife and daughter, and it's because they need to borrow the car. There is actually a reason to go there, and through the going to this place, they go, this allows a redemption somewhat two come out, and you get, Jack, who hasn't seen his daughter in 9 years, gets to connect again. You get a nice character.
And there's also the potential for it to be an obstacle and a place to have another kind of cool moment. I think of, and I know it's kind of a weird comp, but I think of the farmhouse scene in Logan.
Totally.
Right?
Yes, it's a great idea.
Like,
yeah.
Can we have maybe she does, they don't know where to go. They're being hunted. The demons are after them. And and they're like, I know one place where we could go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this person's place. And maybe they're not in their 80s. Maybe it's like Michael Caine, although he might be in his 80s.
He probably
is in his 80s. But it's someone like a Michael Caine, right?
Yeah.
And in the way
the thing, though, I think that he should know her.
Yes.
Yes.
I think they knew each other when they were young. And that she thought she did something to his life and disappeared. And now she's coming to him for the first time in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been like thought all this time that it was her fault that, like, let's say he got, I don't know, he got cancer, or he got or he had a drug problem, or he had we come up with some specific. And she was like, I love this man, or I care about this man enough to say I need to leave. And that was the last person she ever cared about before she went off and lived in the cabin in the woods.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I think we'll keep minding this idea. It's got to be. I'm just trying to play it through in my mind, but I think there's definitely something there that we can utilize. It's great. Some men just want to watch the world burn, Mr. Wayne.
Yeah, character. Is there a Michael Caine character who she knew when he was younger and believed she was responsible for his pain? Now he's where they end up going, and she learns it wasn't her at all. Another thing that I think of in that, and I always loved the way that in Skyfall, Bond returns to his old home.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's like, again, it's totally different, but it's this idea of going to this place that had pain associated with it and making your peace with that as part of your character growth.
Completely. I'm going to be that guy and say, Michael, that Caine has an eye in it. I know it's just a scratch pad for us. But
yes, there will be typos.
There will be typos. I know. I made a post on Reddit publicizing this podcast, and a very astute reader said, it's not me and Ben, it's Ben and I. And I was like, thank you so much.
All right, we actually have a couple of comments right here from Riley. Thank you, Riley. He says, loving the show, boys. So cool to see your process. One pitch for you after listening yesterday. Could Sam's mother have died in childbirth, and maybe this connects her to being the Antichrist?
Yep.
And her dad has always blamed her, which has made her blame herself, leading her to being a fuck up and needing the mother to figure in her life. Really, really interesting idea, Riley. Thank you. I do want to just comment for all of you listening that we would prefer that we don't get creative suggestions from our audience, only because, and this is not because they're bad ideas.
It's not because they're bad ideas.
We don't ever want it to be construed as though we are stealing your ideas. We can steal from movies, but we can't.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want there to be any. But again, like to be clear, it's really nice that people are engaging. And
I love it. I love it.
Absolutely.
I absolutely am so open to questions, or comments potentially about the process. But when it comes to actual creative ideas, for two reasons, the main one being just legalities, but then the second one is, the idea here is that Jake and I are letting you into kind of our writer's room. And of course, Riley is clearly a very smart and imaginative person,
Absolutely.
and he wouldn't be in our writers' room while we were doing this. And so we want to be able to figure these ideas out on our own and kind of let you guys into that process of how we challenge ourselves and get through these problems.
Absolutely.
But again, thank you.
Appreciate the feedback. It means a lot that
and it makes it so much fun, and I love that you're watching. But again, I want to reiterate: questions, awesome. Process questions, fantastic. We are happy to stop at any time to answer and chat about anything not creative idea related.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Great. This is all going really well.
Yeah.
Michael Caine character. I think that's really interesting.
I'm digging it.
I'm digging it too.
What so in this sense, okay. Let's again take a step back. So 100 years ago, she had this thing, she left, she tried to be around humans, wasn't working out so well. Felt like she was never going to find true love. She met this Michael Caine character, felt like she ruined his life somehow, whatever it was that she did, she blamed herself for, which ended up not being her at all, but she blamed herself. And thus, thinking that she's always been just a demon, there's no way to escape that, she flees into the Colorado mountains, finds a cabin in the woods, and becomes Dexter. So Dexter now, Charlize Dexter, starts living in the woods in a cabin above this small town in Colorado. And what has she been doing there? How long has she lived there? How well does she know these people? It can't be that long. One of the things that I always found really interesting when dealing with any sort of immortal type character is that you don't age. So you can't stay in the same place for more than maybe 10 years before people start going, why do you still look so good?
You've got a really good skincare regime.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think every between 5 and 10 years, she moves to another small town in the middle of nowhere. And
5 or 10 years. But she's probably been at this one a while, right? Totally. And long enough to actually care about a couple of the people. Because as we talked about earlier, a plot moment will be a demon's going to show up in this town unbeknownst to, not unbeknownst, but not knowing that she's there. And ultimately they're going to get into a confrontation. So she's probably been there, been in Colorado now.
7 years.
7 years. Ooh, you know, it'd be really cool.
That would be really cool.
This is just going into like immortality and world building and lore and shit like that. Like, what if? So I go to Colorado. I buy this cabin in the woods. Right. I live there for 10 years and I move on, but I don't sell the cabin. I wait 50 years or whatever.
Sure.
And then I can come back to the same town again.
Cool. Okay, that's cool.
Is there a way to because anyway, what I'm thinking is like, is there a place that they end up going that's like one of her old spots?
Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. And is that this could be cool. She lived here 20 years ago. And she goes through town and it's like, Charlize, my goodness, you haven't aged a day.
Yes. And she's like, no, I'm actually her daughter.
Right. That's interesting. I like that. Yeah.
Something like that. And then also, and this is just another question. It's so practical. And so it's one of those stupid things sometimes that I ask, and it probably drives Jake nuts because it's detail oriented. But like, do demons eat and sleep?
Well, that's what I was going to feel like. Does she need a job?
Does she need a job? Does she, take a shit? What does she need in her life? Does she, for some reason, I just think of like demons as, in the classic sense of like just being monsters. And I never think of monsters as sleeping or eating or anything. But then you go, well, a vampire does.
This is true.
In their own way.
Yeah.
And so maybe our versions of demons, as we kind of have been making them a little bit more like vampires, a little bit, is like, what does she need? What is her fuel? What is her
Yeah,
natural?
what's the fun? What's the fun thing? You're like, oh, I have to stop
Yeah,
and get. It's not this like I have to stop and get some vinegar. Why? It's what we drink. She opens a bottle
hot
of cider
sauce.
vinegar and just gulps it down.
She
You're like,
drinks
whoa,
Cholula or
yes,
like Tapatio.
Tabasco.
I love that actually. Like they drink hot sauce.
That's a fun little detail, though, isn't it? Whatever it is, it's like, what do they?
It's just the kind of thing. I don't even know that like you would necessarily pay a ton of attention to it, but at one point she's with her and she just cracks open a bottle of Tapatio and just starts drinking it.
And you're like,
And you're
really?
just like,
Oh yeah, no, it's what we
the
drink.
fuck?
Yeah.
And she's like, what, you want some?
Yeah, totally. That's a fun idea. And again, it's just that like little unique character thing. You just go, oh, do you remember in that movie? And then it becomes a whole thing that YouTubers try and do. Can we copy Charlize Theron by drinking a whole bottle of hot sauce? And it becomes an internet phenomenon.
Yeah, TikTok.
The new Tide Pod.
The hot sauce drinking contest. So she lives off of like hot sauce and like, you know, anything.
Honestly, if it was just that, I'd be like, fine, cool, got it.
Okay. I was gonna say like char, like anything that's like the burnt part of like any food. like
I mean, that could be interesting. It's like, and it's like they go to a diner, and it's like
burger.
And for you, she's like, yeah, like burnt to a crisp.
Burnt to a crisp, and she just eats what's around it and like leaves the like center
Leaves
part.
The main,
table,
like,
you know,
really, like,
that.
yeah, I know.
You know, I don't. Again, detail stuff we can figure it out when we actually get.
Yeah.
But it could be fun, you know.
It's fun.
Like char. But the other questions, just kind of detail wise, are you know, and this again is like kind of silly, and yet also I'm just trying to think of like her having evolved now for 100 years, right? Does like what is her personality evolved to, or has it just never fully like just because she's developed a moral conscience or decided she wants more doesn't mean she's changed.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, yeah, it's we will.
Does she have the quote personality of a demon?
Yeah, and what does that mean?
Yeah,
you know, when I think about her, I think again, like going into this, you know, Charlize Theron is just kind of influencing very much in one sense, you know, kind of mindset.
We're not writing it just for her because there's
no, of course, absolutely, but just kind of going, you know, what is the, you know, wry sense of humor, slightly bitter, you know, a bit of a, but again, it's like I want to find that thing that contrasts in certain degrees with Sam, but allows them to have
Sam is going to be the kind of, I think Sam is the sarcastic.
Totally. Yeah.
I think she's the kind of wise ass who is rebellious in the way that she behaves and talks, right?
Sure. So what's the best way to have the scenes where they're going to be together, which is going to be a lot of our movie, a significant part of our movie, you know, whereby we get the best character back and forth, because we don't want them to be the same.
No, God, no. I think that actually Charlize becomes the straight man in that sense. I think
so. I think so too. Yeah, I think so too.
I think she becomes the Arnold to a certain degree, the Terminator in Terminator 2, where you go, do you have any feelings at all? And she's like, I'm a demon.
Yeah.
You know, like, do you care? And she's like, well, I cared enough.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, right.
You know, like, so personality is of a demon, but also like not a demon in evil sense.
You know, yeah.
Well, yeah, no, definitely not in the monstrous sense, but like even like she doesn't have a desire to be bad anymore. So there's no her lack of potential empathy. In fact, that's really interesting. Just saying, like, she lacks part of being a demon.
Yeah, I think that's it. She lacks empathy. Again, it's difficult though. She doesn't completely lack empathy because she saw this wife and mother and child and was like, oh, I long for that.
Is that empathy, or is that just that's something I've never felt?
Desire, yeah, sure, yeah.
Did I empathize with that mother? I can't. If I've never had the feeling, literally, like because of the definition, I can't empathize.
Right. Sure. Okay, that's interesting. So yeah, she, and also again, she's been alone for. I mean, while she knows certain people, it's not just these like enormously strong friendships.
Yeah,
it's everyone at an arm's length.
Yeah, and it's also again why the Celestials also come to her.
Right.
They assume she won't let her emotions get in the way of what she needs to do.
Completely.
You know, in fact, other than just love, there is a version whereby you kind of comp her a little bit to a psychopath and say like what she wants is to feel.
Yeah.
And that, imagine like a psychopath going, I don't want to have to pretend to feel anymore. I want to actually feel. And that's what being human is to her, and that's what she's promised. Not love specifically, although love could be the emotion that makes her decide that.
Yes.
But that feeling anything.
Totally.
Having any sort of true emotion.
Yeah. Could be
what she wants.
At the very end, she could say, now I know why you cry. It's something I can never do.
Okay, so fine. We don't want to go too close to T2. But I don't think it would be the same, because I am talking about more like she's a psychopath who doesn't have the ability to empathize, to have those kinds of deep emotions because of what she was born at.
Yes.
And yet also, even though she doesn't get, I mean, what's interesting too is, let's say she doesn't, this is really complex for a movie like this, but let's say she doesn't get to be human at the end, which is what
totally.
Right?
Completely.
Well, that means she's still a psychopath. And
yet, and that's partly it. Sorry.
And yet, not just because you're a psychopath doesn't mean you have to be a bad person.
Sure.
People learn to live with that mental disorder. Right?
Yeah.
Like, is there a way that she goes, I was born this way, but I can learn to be better.
Yes, I can learn to be better.
I can take control over my life, you know?
Yeah. I like that.
Even though she's still kind of a psychopath. Psychopath. She can choose to learn to be better and live with what she is.
Yes.
Cool. Great.
I think this might be a good place to wrap up today on a Friday. We're at 1 hour and 26.
I think it's great. I feel very accomplished for today. Really got a nice backstory going for Charlize.
Yeah.
I think that the goal of coming with some names is probably a good one.
Great. Yes, 10 names. The mission.
Yeah,
to have 10 names by Monday.
And also, just a note to our viewers.
Yes,
we are thinking of doing something in the future that would involve potentially a guest that we would bring on to the show. It'd probably be separate from our regular writing work, but we would bring them on and do a kind of an interview. We know that there's a lot of other podcasts that kind of do that stuff. So it's definitely not what we're looking to do regularly, but there's something specific about the process that I think we can deal with specifically, because that's kind of what our thing is all about here, is by going through the process. And so I think it'd be cool to bring on other writers, not necessarily all screenwriters, to talk about their process and how that might differ from ours, and how they get their ideas and get story things, and how they work through all these challenges.
Completely. We do have really quickly. I'll just say we've got a question from Chris live on the. So while we're still here, should we just go ahead and answer it?
Let's do it.
Hey Chris, thanks so much for watching.
I'm going to put
Chris
us
says,
back here.
given how relatively structured you are in your story development, do you treat set pieces as their own section, or does that come more organically when you dig deeper into plotting? That's a really, really good question.
So I'll answer that by saying both. So actually, set pieces are really important because
the type of movies that we write. Yeah.
What's that?
The type of movies that we write.
In the type of movies that we write. Yeah. I mean, look, if we were writing, Coda, there's not going to be a set piece in it, probably. But for what we do, which tends to be world building genre movies with action, set pieces are important. It's what's going to go in the trailer. It sometimes is what going to be the biggest parts of your pitch. They're going to take up a lot of the space in your screenplay. And so it's really important to find set pieces that not only are exciting and fresh and fit everything you're trying to do, but also that move the plot forward or the character forward. We really, really try to not do set pieces just for the sake of having a set piece. That's always been important to us. I don't know that we always succeed. And sometimes we look back at past scripts and go, man, like we just did this on a script of ours and we took an entire set piece out because we were like, this actually doesn't contribute at all.
Absolutely. It was really interesting to see that. We were like, and it was a script that was an older script.
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, if this went, what would change? You were like, not a lot.
Exactly.
I think it's a really good question to ask yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. Sometimes if we have an image for a set piece, we'll write it down right away. It'll be part of our plotting. We'll go, this set piece is going to go right here. Sometimes it'll come out of plotting and we'll go, hey, I mean, at this moment,
For example, the other day we were talking about the character of Sam. We were going, what is this? Who does she owe money to? Oh, she owes money to this guy. Oh, Charlize is going to turn up towards the end of Act 1. She kills that guy. Great. What's going to happen? Well, it's going to be a moment that comes out of that. And you naturally go, well, I'm going to want something at the end of Act 1 to give us a thrilling push into the second act of the movie and onwards. What is that? Well, it kind of was just born out of that kind of character, but we knew roughly that we were going to have something there. And again, sometimes we go, maybe there'll be something in the middle of the movie. What will that be? Don't know what that is, but let's kind of pencil that in. There'll be something. So I keep banging my mic. There'll be something there. There'll be something towards the end of Act 2, maybe. How big it will be, not sure. And there'll be something at the end.
I was having a conversation. With someone recently about attention span of an audience and how 20 to 30 minutes is really the primary attention span of any real audience. And it actually, I started to think of it, we were talking a bit about it in terms of television, but I started to think about it in terms of movies and movie structure and how naturally we tend to go about every 20 to 30 minutes, we want a set piece.
Yeah.
And it just kind of goes that way because of like the way in which we kind of structure stories. But if you think about it, even just from an audience retention standpoint, you want to grab them into something. If they're there to watch an action movie, if they're there to watch a fantasy movie or something like that, you got to kind of grab their attention again about every 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you breathe afterwards. And that's when you get all of your really nice, juicy character moments.
Yeah.
And then you got to grab them again. Especially in this day and age of streaming where it's so easy to be watching a movie and 20 minutes in, if nothing's happened, you turn it off.
I know.
You go to the next thing.
Or,
I can't tell you.
You know what it is? It's picking up your phone.
Oh, that's so weird. Yes, and you're not even watching.
Up my phone. I was watching a show the other day, and I just found myself picking up my phone. Right. And that was it. I was out of it.
But a really good set piece will bring you out of your phone and back to the movie. The key, though, is that it's not just action for action's sake, because I got to be honest, I will fall asleep, literally fall asleep during big set pieces that are just repetitive
Yeah,
action.
totally.
They will not grab me at all. But if there's real emotional stakes going on,
Yeah.
or if there's real some tension or
Yeah.
something that's really pushing the movie forward, that's when I'm like on the edge of my seat going,
Completely. Completely.
you know.
So yeah. Anyway, Chris, hope that answers your question. I guess, do we treat it as their own section? No, I think generally
You know what I can do?
it kind of blends.
Look
Oh,
at that.
that's good.
Damn.
Yeah, I think generally,
Look at that.
they fit within an act, and they often bridge bridge acts.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
There you
Cool.
go.
Well,
All
that
right,
is
well.
it. We will see you all. Actually, we may not see you on Monday. It is Rosh Hashanah. I
Of
am
course.
Jewish.
Yes.
So we will be off on Monday.
Well, there you go.
So
do it on
we will
Tuesday.
see you on Tuesday.
And just a quick reminder, please subscribe to the channel. It's just
Yes.
about getting us seen. So I won't see you. I'll see you later. But you have a great night, Matt.
All right, Matt. Oh, yes. All right. Bye.
Bye.